Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. Thanks for coming by to join us again on our Proof of Trust webinar series. I am your host, JT Fanning. I am joined by Sheldon Rezendes. We are doing safe surfing for business today. We're going to talk about this functionality of our product that is around DNS security and cloud security, how internet browsing has been changed or improved. So we're calling it safe surfing for business. Couple things. Agenda-wise, here's what our plan is. We're going to talk about the news. I'm going to talk about some current events. I'm going to talk about what's going on in some very, very recent activity that's happened in the space. Then we're going to talk about the modern internet. And then we're going to finish the demo with some questions and answers. So if you all remember back to the very start of the series, we talked about one of these use cases, which really highlighted a lack of visibility, some challenges that customers have around policy, right? Acceptable use policies are a really good example. So when someone's trying to apply an acceptable use policy to a business, right? I don't want to allow gambling on my network. You need to make sure you're not doing social media at work. Or they're trying to control productivity or security. How do they do that? And it used to be you were behind this really cool firewall or some sort of network security device that could enforce that. But as people have become more remote and more dispersed, the tools have changed. And then obviously, anytime you start blocking websites, I'm sure many of you that are IT administrators or in the space know, you block a website, you're going to hear about it, especially if it's something people want to do. We talk about the solution of the SonicWall solution really being this continuous user and device verification. The fact that if you make a change in the policy, it should very quickly propagate out to the users so that if there's something being blocked that's legitimate, you can quickly remediate that. But also, if you need to enforce something to reduce risk to your customers, that should happen immediately too. I love seeing John immediately ask a question. Is there a promotion for customers to upgrade global VPN to cloud secure edge? There are a couple of active promotions depending on your geography, but yes is the short answer. I would reach out to your sales account rep, or I'll take your information and share it, and we'll get a phone call out to you. So there are a couple different promotions to do it. We want to make sure that the solution's right for you before we just try to sell you something, though. But thanks for the question, John. There are quite a few promotions to help people move from legacy VPN to our current platforms. So, breaking news. Look at this. My best slide editing possible. Trying to get the fancy orange. So, if you didn't know, there was a major IT distributor that suffered a pretty substantial interruption to their business, and that vendor, I'm not going to call them out by name, but turns out, in some of the reporting below, you can see Bleeping Computer, Cybernet, vulnerable VPN gateway, remote access software. So, I brought this up because I want to make sure that everyone knows on the call, what we're talking about right now should be front and center for security conversations, but also in your customer's mind. So this ransomware or threat actor organization SafePay, since 2024, has already claimed 220 high-profile victims. They're looking to make huge damages. And when you think about what that damage looks like, the reporting on this said that there was $136 million a day in losses. Now, obviously, those are huge businesses. There may be some of you on the call that operate at that scale, but when you think about the damage that that's causing for them, and the investments they've probably made or haven't made, the risk to small businesses are oftentimes maybe more catastrophic, right? Not many businesses can weather 136 million, but there's a lot that can't weather 100 million or $100. The damage is substantial. And I've seen online a lot of the communication around loss of trust, lack of response, confusion around what was actually impacted, and all of that just seems so stressful. So, I mentioned that this SafePay gang is relatively new. They've had about 220 victims since 2024, and their primary attack surface is using legacy VPN gateways, compromised credentials, and then these password spraying attacks. And if you remember from our previous talks, the password spraying attacks are that idea that stolen or leaked credentials online are being used to very quickly try to log into these systems. So whether that be a VPN or it be some other sort of cloud access, those stolen or compromised credentials are very commonly a attack vector these days. So hopefully I shared that with you. Many of you probably already heard about that incident. If you wanted more details, the hyperlinks are below in the slide. But it's a nice current event, to think about why VPN security and why remote access is front and center. So why are we here today? We talked about VPN last time, JT. We don't have to get into the details anymore. No, today we're going to talk about the second side of it. So instead of accessing resources and securing access to those, how do you handle when you're going out to the wide open internet, right? When users are at home and they might just want to be doing, browsing or using SaaS-based applications or other web-based applications, what does their process look like, right? What are they supposed to do? How are they supposed to interact with those platforms? And the reality of that is most companies, whether it be K through 12 organizations or large businesses, they oftentimes have an acceptable use policy or like a document that they have their employees sign that says, yep, we definitely won't go on to, FanDuel to make my latest fantasy football bet, or, hey, I won't, browse shopping websites while I'm at work. I won't use my own personal email accounts at work. Most companies have those policies, but where they fall down oftentimes is enforcing them. And so what we're talking about today is how do you do that? If you don't want your employees on, or you don't want the people in your company to be exposed to gambling or low reputation websites or potential phishing websites, things like that, how do you control that? And if there was a single application that was on your endpoint that enabled your users to have peace of mind that they don't have to worry about the links they click on because it's checking them and it's verifying the DNS records to make sure that they're a trusted and legitimate website, would that add value to your customers? So as my colleague Sheldon tries to get reconnected to the Bright Talk platform, what I can talk through is really the technology. I'll build out a list on the left, and then the risk that's associated with it. Something I've got as feedback on these sessions very commonly, and I want to make sure I continue to offer on these sessions, is just an educational way to evaluate all tools, not just our product, but any product in the space. So the things on the left, you'll see things like DNS layer security, malicious URL detection, cloud access security broker, or CASB, secure web gateway, or SWIG, as it's abbreviated sometimes. Those are tools or functions of products. And there are many vendors that provide these solutions. And on the right, what I'll build out is the associated risk, so that when you're talking to your clients or you're talking to your stakeholders at your business, you can ask them like human questions instead of technology questions. So instead of asking, do we have DNS layer security? Maybe you ask, when someone goes to a potentially dangerous website, how do we help prevent that from happening? If I accidentally receive a Teams message from one of my vendors that I work with, and it's a phishing link, are there tools in place to prevent that link from resolving? If someone needs to go to their banking site on a corporate machine, but instead of Bank of America, it's Bank of AA America, how do I help that user not fall for that trap or fall into that challenging spot? And then the cloud access security broker. How do we control when people access software as a service applications? How do we control when people are using shadow IT, right? Like maybe they're using Dropbox, but we should be using Teams. And then the secure web gateway, which is probably the sexiest term out there right now. SWIG, as everyone calls it. Every time I think of SWIG, I think of just like getting a drink of Coke or something that's Sonic. But this SWIG is like the legacy content filtering solutions. So those things that the firewalls or the content filters used to do on premise, right? Making sure you don't go to gambling websites or pornography websites or malicious URLs or whatever they might be, that's moved to the cloud, and they resolve against a cloud-based directory service, and that's where we've really used the platform. Hopefully that helps you all talk about this. Again, like I think one of the challenges we have in technology today is really around communicating risk and communicating actual problems. I'm in a lot of meetings with IT executives, but also like the business side of organizations. And a lot of times the businesses they get bored with the technology conversation. But when you talk to them about things like, hey, if someone sends you a malicious link because they're trying to trick you, we need a tool that helps us prevent that. Or do you trust yourself enough to stop that? Like that sort of conversation helps break down barriers within organizations, which tend to be one of the biggest challenges for getting adoption. So I've been trying to stall for my friend Sheldon. He, in typical webinar fashion, when he connected, it kicked him off. You guys did get to see his face for 5 seconds, but he vanished from there. What we had entail for you today is a demo, and we were going to focus on a couple of things: the ease of use, the fact that right out the gate, if you're configuring these services, they are secure, and then we're going to run through like maybe a user example and answer some question and answer. What I'm going to do, just out of like abundance of delivering this thing, is to prove that it's easy to use and that it's out of the box secure. I'm going to log into my own instance. This was not planned by me. And I will pull up, and I'm as technical as many of you are probably on the call. I will pull up the UI, and I'll show you how easy it is to configure content filtering policies and exclusions. And then hopefully by then, Sheldon's able to reconnect, and he can show the user example, but we'll see where it goes from there. If you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you want to ask me questions about other stuff, SonicWall related, we're here for that too. But let me get logged in. Again, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm not afraid. Got to do my two-factor authentication to get on my admin console. You know, one of the biggest challenges to doing this webinar solo is just talking to yourself. You know, I don't think anyone's it's the longest anyone's ever talked to themselves. All right, so for those of you that don't know, this is our cloud security center, right? This is the Capture Security Center for SonicWall. It's the central hub for all of our technology. My SonicWall is our licensing platform, and then Network Security Manager does our firewalls. Wireless Network Manager manages our switching and our access point infrastructure. Capture Client is our EDR tool. Cloud Application Security and Capture Client MDR are those managed services for verifying like email protection and the endpoint security technology. They're all there. And then you'll see this bubble for Cloud Secure Edge. That's the product we've talked about during this series. And we will pop right back on. By the way, this is all live, so anything that goes right or wrong, it's all credit to the platform. So I landed on the platform. This is our default UI for CSE, and today we're talking about the internet access portion of our product. As you can see, it's fairly basic. I don't have anything configured here. I wasn't planning on showing you a demo, but if I was going to create a policy to help secure my users, I'd start with this Create Policy button on the right, and you'll see from a management perspective, it's already just so readable. Like you just go down this list and read in a natural, Western way. Do I want to do category filtering? If you are curious what that is, you can hover over the box. Category filtering is pretty self-explanatory, right? Yep, I want to block automotive stuff, right? Maybe I'm in the Amish community and I don't want anything about standard cars. You then can go to the application level of security. So when you think of applications, again, you hover over this little doohickey here, but really talking about blocking specific services. So instead of having to block a bunch of domains, you click on this app and you go, look, we don't want TikTok running on our network. I'm sure TikTok's popular across the board. They got like 1.7 billion users or something crazy like that. TikTok, not going to happen on our corporate machines. Now, there may be some situations where you want to make an exception. So if you go through and you block a bunch of applications, you might want to allow certain portions of that application to exist. So you go down and block something like social media, but you want to exclude LinkedIn from that because maybe your HR department, uses LinkedIn for recruiting and hiring and that sort of thing. You can do so with the exclusion policy. I'm going to leave the exclusions unselected. There's domain-based filtering. People always want to do custom work, right? Everyone wants to block some specific domain. So, hey, I also want to block X domain. And then, of course, there's the exception, right? The opposite of that. Then the one I've been a big fan of is actually the geo blocking. So there are maybe situations where you don't want your traffic to touch certain other countries' networks, right? And if that's, especially if you have people that are traveling or that are remote, that are working from different places around the globe, there may be situations where you don't want their internet traffic going through certain IP addresses or being navigated to certain IP addresses, and this can help you prevent that. You notice it's all like human language, so you can walk through this oftentimes with your compliance department or your HR department or business leaders and very clearly explain what you're enabling or disabling. Then something new that we've added recently is the risk-based URL filtering. I'll zoom in so you all can see what that is. But URL filtering, it's actually designed to block malicious URLs. So things that are like all okay, right? Maybe they get a category rating that's not blocked by you. Maybe it's a new URL. Maybe it's an existing URL that's trusted, but it's been compromised in some way. SonicWall is actually able to inspect that and help block out those potentially risky websites, right? So if someone's website gets compromised and starts delivering ransomware, but it's a legitimate website, we can help prevent against that. Then, of course, again, exclusions, just to make sure that, if GitHub's on there and you want to make sure it can continue to distribute resources, you can do that. So after you turn all that on, you push next, it gives you a summary of what you're blocking. So one of those big things that happens sometimes when people create content filtering policies, I mentioned it, a user gets a block message, they are pissed off, they are mad, they are wanting to get someone. Well, you're going to very clearly see what you're about to block. Helps reduce those risk of false positives or accidental misconfigurations. It's going to let you know what you're blocking. You can hover over this and actually see like what a breakdown of that website might be. Sometimes it's like, I'm not sure what a spyware website is. Well, here's what it is, right? Or I'm not sure what a configuration website would be. You can get a little bit more of a clarity there. And then once you click next, you're ready to assign your policy. And you get to actually communicate a block page experience for the user. And so hopefully, if Sheldon's able to reconnect, he'll be able to show what that user experience looks like when they get a blocked web page. I might try it on my other monitor and hope I don't get kicked off the internet for browsing it to show you all. You also get a policy assignment. So you attach it to a role within your organization. So this will pull in your directory service. For many of you on the call, that's probably Entra ID. And it'll pull in your roles, sales, accounting, HR, developers, BYOD. And then based on the role, you can assign a policy. And so if you want to control content on your corporate machines, but you're not super concerned with controlling content on the bring your own device machines, or maybe you only want to protect those folks from malicious URLs, but not content filtering, you can do that in a granular way very easily from this platform. Once you assign a role to it, I'll assign my all users role to it just for the purpose of this. I'll hit save. I'll say this was a test. Save. It's operational. And so now these rules are being applied to my machine. There's a user platform that's being blocked. The user gets this update. Sheldon was going to hold me honest. I said it was instantaneous. He said technically it's like 30 seconds. There's some DNS that has to get, there's an API calls that happen. So within 30 seconds, these policies will be deployed to all of your remote users and they'll be enforced. So if you need to make a change, right? Like, oops, I blocked the wrong thing. Go in here, quickly change it, unblock that or write the exclusion, submit. 30 seconds later, everyone's back to work. So as an IT administrator, you can very quickly get these solutions out there. Let's see, we can create our own, but do you have an example, image, PDF, etc., to show the tech to risk examples? I can whip that one up into like a more formal one for you, Theo. It's a good question. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I don't mind creating a document and sending it out. I actually got a little bit more robust one that I pulled that from. That specifically talked to this product suite that we're reviewing today, but I'll give you the more robust version and I'll send it over to you via email. Thanks for the question. Okay, so I don't know, pretty good on the demo. Hopefully you all enjoyed that. Let me see. I'm going to pull up a screen on the other side and see what happens if I try to go to a malicious website. What do you think? What do you think? I'm afraid if I type something in and it's not blocked, then everyone will be like, "Oh my gosh, you guys allow FanDuel.com." Sorry, FanDuel. Let's see if they let me go there. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm not going to test the content filtering policy any more than those couple sites I just tried. I'm glad I didn't do that on the screen share. Anyways, we'll go back to my slide deck, and I will continue to give Sheldon an opportunity to reconnect. But we do have time for question and answer. I'm going to take a quick breather, and then we'll talk about maybe why you should be considering SonicWall. One of my colleagues messaged me and he said, "Pick a guns dealer. Let's try. I'll tell you if that works or not." I think this is a weapons dealer. They're letting me just have free reign, so sorry, Jeff. Not a good suggestion, but I'm wide open on the internet currently. It might be because I'm in the admin console and I'm configuring it, to be honest. So, when we're talking about why you might consider SonicWall, or maybe you haven't looked at SonicWall for this suite, or you've been using the firewalls, and hey, one of the challenges is as people go more remote, the firewall has a harder time inspecting encrypted traffic, right? Especially when you're trying to look at like HTTPS requests. If you're not doing DPI, SSL, or TLS inspection on the firewall, you might have a really hard time blocking some of these websites. And so by moving to an agent-based solution, something that lives on the machine, not only do you have the ability to block those DNS requests when the user's on premise, but also when they're off your network. And instead of having to try to put firewalls at all your executive sites or your employees' branch locations, you can start to leverage the application on the endpoint as a way to control the user behavior. And for a user, they get the ability to be much more consistent, right? They know what the experience is all the time. And that constant level of enforcement actually helps drive adoption and adherence to those acceptable use policies. We've seen quite a few insurance companies being much more strict around acceptable use, and the reality that people can use corporate networks in a seemingly innocuous way to do malicious activity, right? Like 5 years ago, it was like if someone was downloading movies, or maybe this is 10 years ago, I'm losing track of time, but like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, people were downloading movies at their place of employment, but then the place of employment was getting served with like piracy notices, right? It's like, how do you control that? And if someone's using your corporate laptop to do somewhat malicious stuff, that's challenging. Andrew just popped a question, and it's actually a really good one, Andrew. How is this deployed? Is it a local app installed on the company computers or accessible in some other way? Just confirming how it's different than services already managed under our firewalls. Great question. So it is an application that runs on your laptop or on your mobile device or on your iPad or your Chromebook. So it's a replacement for many of our existing customers. It would ultimately be a replacement for like Global VPN, Net Extender, Mobile Connect, whatever VPN service we're using. And the single application can do both VPN connectivity, right, remote access connectivity, and provide DNS filtering or DNS security, all that stuff I reviewed about 5 minutes ago. So it's an application that runs on your mobile device, Mac device, Linux device, Windows, whatever that company issued machine or BYOD machine is. So yeah, nothing for you to maintain other than having people install an agent that will run on the machine. All of the infrastructure is hosted in SonicWall's cloud, so we'll manage that for you. Another question coming in from Jerry. I'm interested in figuring out how this works. I want to test it out. Where can I start with that? Actually, it's a great question. A lot of our customers ask this. We actually have a free trial available in My SonicWall. So our licensing platform, mysonicwall.com, you can go in and start a free trial. There's no strings attached. Nobody's going to bother you. You can test out the product. Obviously, we want to support you in that. So if you have additional questions or you get stuck somewhere, your sales team can help you out. Yeah, Andrew, great question. It's both a replacement for VPN, like something like Azure VPN. It could be, yeah. It's a replacement for VPN, but it is also a DNS security solution or a like internet browsing solution. So there are companies out there today. I'll pick on a few of them, like Cisco Umbrella or Zoros or OpenDNS. A couple other. There's probably a dozen vendors or so that provide DNS-based security via an agent. We replace both of that and the VPN client. So the single application can do both. Maybe it'll help if I pulled it up and showed you. So this is the application running on my machine currently. I'll log in and just kick it off real quick. So at a high level, the app is running on my current laptop. I'm working remotely from home. I'm not connected to a VPN tunnel, but if I were to connect to the VPN tunnel, I'd have access to these private ranges of IPs. I can also access web destinations. ClickView like an ERP app that we use, enterprise reporting application for sales data. So I could access a web application from it. And then it's also doing the trust scoring. So if I go to my trust platform, it is checking my machine for these different trust factors. So that's the remote access piece of the product. This same application that I'm on is also doing all of that content filtering and DNS filtering that I showed you in the demo.
Hey, JT, I think I'm back from the dead.
Welcome back, Sheldon, dude. Hey, I've been fighting against the demons of the demo here for sure and just trying to survive. So hopefully the folks have been enjoying.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry for the trouble there.
Where we got stopped, and I think where we could really use your help to kind of illustrate and bring this home, is just showing the user experience. So I walked the folks through the UI of configuring a content filtering policy, but it'd be great if we could just show the user experience, kind of what happens when they hit a block page. If you can do that, that would be incredible. And while you get set up, I know you're just catching your breath from running down to Starbucks or wherever you're going to get internet. I'll answer Glenn's questions here. So, hey, Glenn, you said, is there a way to approve agents that use the service so that users cannot install on a personal device unless approved? Yes, there's lots of ways to do that. So short answer is yes, but we do that through a couple different methods. Some of them are just the profile of the device, right? Like you only allow Windows 11 machines. But there's also some situations where you can restrict it by like text file or specific applications running on the machine, or you can just straight up block all machines that aren't part of like a pool of serial numbers or something. So there is lots of ways. Good question. Do the protections work whether users log into the apps or not? Yep, great question. I'll let Sheldon kind of dive into the details while he goes through the demo, but they definitely do. The user does not have to interact with the platform to do that. All right, Sheldon, let's see if the screen share works for you. Nope. I kicked him out again, everybody. I launched him to the moon. The good thing, there's more questions to fill the air here. So some of these capabilities are available through my firewall. Would there be compatibility issues if I were to launch these protections through CSE? Would they only run when someone's outside of the firewall perimeter? We have a concept called trusted networks, which allows you to have the CSE product basically like become dormant or to turn off when it's on a network you trust. So you could set it up that way, but they won't conflict. So even if you had two policies running, the CSE policy will resolve first because it's on the client, and then when it goes to the firewall, that's when you'll actually have the firewall will just see traffic going to our SonicWall cloud infrastructure. So CSE agent or app would take precedence in there. So there wouldn't be a conflict there, but it would save you from having to configure content filtering policies on multiple firewalls. You could just configure them in one spot and have it apply to all your users. Sheldon, as soon as you clicked share screen, you got removed from the earth. So welcome back. Maybe.
Spot right now, and I'm hoping that the connection does not give out again. Let me try this one more time. I am so sorry. You've been doing a fantastic job.
Let's see if you can do the demo. Everyone would clap at the end. That's what we need. We want to see the user experience of the application.
Absolutely. Let me try and share my screen.
Cool.
And we will get this squared away.
The audience is just drum rolling. You know, they're just stomping their feet. Sounds like a Queen concert. They can't wait.
I love that, and I'm excited to show you guys what we have going on here. Just bear with me a moment. Let me know when you can see.
Good news is we can see your screen.
Oh, we love that.
Dog, NIST 800, 4 ways to ask questions when you're interviewing. Woman attacked by alligator. I mean, that's a series of events right there.
This is a wild page from Bing. So I didn't have the opportunity to show you guys the policy, but in terms of the block page experience, I do want to just call out some of the places that I'm going to search before I show you the block page. Within the ITP policy, I've leveraged the geo-blocking capabilities so that we can block sanctioned countries. I've blocked a few domains explicitly, and I've also blocked gambling as a category. So I'm going to show you guys a few of those blocks, and I've also added an exception there for FanDuel. So while gambling is blocked, FanDuel should still be allowed. Let's kick things off with a Russian search engine, Yandex.com. Let me just make sure that I have everything right now. We are running. Sorry, I need to make sure everything is well with the system before we start movement. Okay, I made sure app should be on now if this completes. And as expected, you're seeing that block site. So Yandex.com is that Russian search engine. If we want to go
real quick, Sheldon, you're doing let me see if I can help you. You sound like an announcer at a boxing arena. You got like duplicated audio, so I don't want the audio.
One after another. Does it sound a bit clearer?
No.
Oh, well.
Why don't you drive and I'll talk.
Okay, perfect.
I'll do my best to navigate. I don't know where Sheldon's going, but I'm going to do my best. So he's going to a Russian search engine, and he's going to try to load up a website, and you see the web page that gets blocked. So Yandex.com, it gets blocked. He has to contact the administrator. That's kind of where we configured it. Goes to another site, also been blocked, violates corporate policy, gets a common block message. Got it. It's a known gambling site. I've never gambled there, but I don't do a lot of personal gambling. I'm on Polymarket, if anything. So now he's going to FanDuel, which has an exception written for it. And even though it's part of the gambling category, he's able to land on this website without any sort of impact. So gambling website, category block, but the exclusion allows him to go through there. He's going to go to Yahoo. He's going to show probably trying to navigate to a website to through a HTTPS session. Let's see what he does. Pete David's silence. I mean, the headlines on I haven't watched Yahoo newsreel in some times. Andrew, I'm going to answer your question live here in just a second. Perfect. So he wanted the blocks explicitly. He said, hey, I don't want Yahoo News to resolve. And so when he pops into there, it gets blocked, specifically Yahoo. But even though the rest of the internet browsing worked fine, he's calling out a specific website. These are going through some of the different scenarios we outlined when we were going through the demo on blocking and dropping exclusions. Oh yeah. Remember how I told you all that I told you it would take place instantaneous, and Sheldon was my accountability partner to tell you that it would be like maybe 30 to 45 seconds. So that's what he was talking about. I actually think we're going to do webinars like this from now on. You know how you ever watch a foreign film and the subtitles? It's like the most quiet movie you've ever been to if there's subtitles in a foreign film. So you guys can read that, but it's easy for the user to unblock it. I think, Sheldon, if you were able to, you were going to show the folks if they wanted to do a lookup of a domain to see what it was rated. Maybe you can pop over to that. So one thing that IT administrators often do, yep, one moment, cool. One thing oftentimes IT administrators have is they've got a category that's blocking a certain website, but they don't know where that's being blocked at. And so Sheldon can pop that up in a second once he gets to the UI. While he pulls that up, Andrew asked, hey, this service taps into the same cloud management software that I have set up for all of our firewalls, but we would need to set up specific policies for the remove VPN service. I may be asking this wrong. Yeah, I'm just going to answer it live because I think I know what your question is, which is SonicWall's got the cloud firewall management, which is called NSM. That controls the orchestration of all of your firewalls. CSE is a separate platform. You don't have to have any SonicWall infrastructure to use the CSE product. But if you do, it can share common connection points. So short answer is you wouldn't have to do anything with your firewalls, and it's not explicitly part of that. Long answer is there is an integration that can go between them to make it a better experience for you for being invested in us as a company. Hopefully that answers it. Okay, so here's the domain lookup. Go back a little bit, Sheldon, because I wasn't talking through it. So top right corner, look up domain in like a little search area. And when you click that, it pops up a window. You as an IT administrator get your CEO calls you and says, I'm just trying to browse the internet and I can't get there. And you're like, well, where are you going? And he's showing you the Brovada, which was that gambling site, is blocked because of the gambling category. If you wanted to write an exclusion, you would either exclude that, or maybe you go, crap, we didn't mean to block gambling. Our CEO likes gambling and we don't want to block that. And you could go write an exclusion policy for that. So he scrolls down to where the exclusions are, and you would add Bravado down there as the exclusion policy. Perfect. And then this is the part where where Sheldon was saying it takes, I say instantaneous, he says 1 minute. We'll land somewhere in the middle, like 30 seconds for the APIs to pull through. And then that user will be able to refresh their browser and access that website or be blocked, whichever way you're doing it. He's showing you the lookup, and there now it's green, it's good to go. He wrote the exclusion. If that user was to try to refresh the website on their machine, they would be able to access that website now. So really speeds up IT departments and managed service providers' ability to solve those problems. I think that might be the extent of the demo. Sheldon, I'll let you come off mute. I had muted you just so we didn't have the reverberation. So I'll unmute you, but we'll see if it's still there.
Go ahead. Guys, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I mean, you still sound robotic, but we'll let it slide for the end if there was anything we missed there.
All right, I promise I'll be brief. The only part that I didn't want to touch on, and I'm not sure if you had already spoken about this, was our out-of-the-box protections. So all of the acceptable use policy, or more of the content filtering, application, explicit domains, your country blocking through geo-blocking, those are related to your acceptable use policy and something that is user-defined. This risk-based URL filtering, when we toggle that on, or our threat protection over here, all of these categories users are blocked against out of the box. As soon as they turn on ITP, they're blocked against. They block all of these threat vectors. And when you turn on URL filtering, it also does the same. It doesn't require a complicated team of experts just to make sure that your users are protected. So once it's deployed and this is turned on, your users are already safer without even applying your acceptable use policy. That's just another layer on top to help make sure that we help you maintain your corporate compliance.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. All righty. Got one more question that popped through. It said, hey, if I enable the CSE protections, would it cover users when they're both on-premise and remotely? The answer is yes. So the user has a consistent experience, whether they're at a Starbucks, if they're on their hotspot, if they're at the office, if they're on an airplane, that user has the same experience and protections across all of those platforms, home Wi-Fi, wherever they might be. Thanks for that question. All right. Let me pull back up the screen share. Entire screen. I figured while Sheldon was talking, I pulled this up just as a reminder for everyone. The CSE application on the left-hand side here, right here, that's the application we've been referencing. And it covers multiple functions. So, Andrew, your questions around VPN as a service, zero trust network access, cloud access security broker, and then the secure web gateway features, which Sheldon just demoed. All of those things are available in a single consolidated app. And Saulo's asking, is it available in a TZ series? This is a software-based application. It works with all of our Gen 7 products. It works with all of our Gen 8 products, but you also don't need to have a SonicWall firewall. So for some really small businesses or people who have huge remote workforces, if they don't have firewalls out there and all they have are laptops, we can deploy this agent and provide the level of security that SonicWall is known for out to those remote sites. So that's the real difference. So yes, it works with the TZ firewalls, but there's no requirement for you to have a TZ firewall. Hopefully that answers your question there, Solio. I put this screen back up in there. This has been a popular request. A lot of people came back to us every time. Zero trust network access is the typical driving force behind this product adoption. We have this zero trust network access checklist. You can download it in the documents on the right-hand side of your screen, I think, or maybe it's the bottom for the people viewing. Or you can take a screenshot. I'll leave this up for a second. But these are like general questions that you can ask your customers or the stakeholders at your business to decide, are we thinking about zero trust network access properly? Is this something that should be on our roadmap? Have we thought through how we want to exist in this ecosystem? And, I always pressure people. Businesses saw this huge cost savings when they went to remote work because they didn't have to pay for offices. But what they didn't account for is the level of security, IT and physical security that they would need to invest in. And this is some of that pullback there. So 2-3 years, people working remotely, realizing that those solutions that they had may not be the best. So hopefully the screenshot works. You can also comment like, hey, send me a link and I'll get you the platform. Okay. If you've ever seen someone dance better than me on this, then let me know in the comments. But I do personally take it to heart the ratings that we get there. Please cut Sheldon some slack. We all know how IT worlds can be, how internet works. So if you could, please give us 5 stars. Let us know that you found value in the content. It does personally make me feel better and sleep easier at night. And if you want to leave a comment, something like, hey, way to dance, or nice job, or the demo gods prevail, whatever, happy to see those comments as well. If you'd like to comment something for us to improve upon in the future, like, hey, I'd love if you could go in more detail about X, or we are this type of business and we'd be curious about why, that's really helpful. And a reminder, SonicWall, never alone, relentless security. There are a few more questions that came through, so I'll answer those. Feel free to do that, but this is the end of the prepared content. So if you'd like to disconnect, you can. Andrew asked, is the application available for both Mac and PC platforms? Yes, all major OSs are supported. So we support Chromebook, we support Mac, OS, OS X, Linux, iOS, Android. So the platform is available for all of those solutions. The agent we were demoing just now is a Windows-based agent, or the one that I was demoing. And then I got Solo saying, do I need to contact a retailer to get these services, or can I get it on my SonicWall? You would need to contact a retail reseller. So you're going to be asking for Cloud Secure Edge, or CSE, and you would ask about Secure Internet Access, SIA. So CSE, SIA, six letters. Almost like a Scrabble board, but yeah, Cloud Secure Edge, Secure Internet Access, and then all you need to know is the number of users that you want to protect. So you got 15 remote users, you got 500 remote users, whatever it is, you buy the license for that number of users, and you can deploy it out there. Of course, thanks, Andrew. I appreciate it. Again, this is the end of the prepared content. I appreciate you all hanging on and dancing. Sheldon, why don't you give us the robotic extract here and tell everyone, send them on their way.
Thanks, everybody, for enjoying my robotic voice and hotspot issues. JT did a fantastic job, and I cannot thank him enough. I really appreciate you guys joining, and in the future, we look forward to some more sessions with better internet connection sessions.
If you don't buy our products, we're sending the Sheldon T1000 after you. Thank you so much. All right, everyone have a great one.